Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to bring you this first interview of Inspired Online with Nora Conrad of noraconrad.com. We had a great chat about building processes and systems that work for your business. So you should totally go check her out after you watch this interview. And I hope that you're going to learn a lot from this, not only from the way that she has transitioned her business and is now working it as a side hustle and hoping to make it something full time, but also from all the tips she shares about working with someone who helps you to build processes in your business and how you can figure that out on your own. She has some really great tips for, figuring out what you do every day, laying it out step by step, and then being able to take that and work with a VA or hire somebody else. And she also has some great programs and apps that you can download that'll help you keep your business organized and running the way that you want it to.
How are you?
Good. Getting over a cold, so hopefully I don't sound too stuffed up. But
no. All right. So if you're ready, we can just get started with some of these questions, and then we'll talk about, the systems and everything, and then finish up with a few more questions.
Sounds good.
Right.
Wherever you are.
Yep. So the first question I had was, how did you get started running your own business? I know you're still doing like the full-time thing as well. So how did you sort of make the transition into doing something on your own?
Well, I started out in web design, and through high school I did some like freelance design, but I never charged for it. I never really realized I could charge for it. And then I took a break, like my senior year of high school. It just got busy, and my sophomore year of college, I kind of started blogging, and I just designed my own site, and a few people asked me to design their site, and they actually offered to pay me. So that was the first time it kind of clicked in my mind. I was like, oh, I can get paid for this stuff. So I started off doing web design stuff, and then it's kind of evolved from there. I've had 3 different blogs and offered a ton of different services, and I finally kind of landed where I am now, just this summer, really.
Okay, great. And then is your passion helping people build their strategies and systems for their business?
If you had asked me that 6 months ago, I would have been like, no, not at all. But I think so. I think I finally realized it's what I'm good at. I really liked building websites because I liked helping people like take a next step in their business and feel like they were ready to start their business. But I had one client who we made her a gorgeous site, and she got a huge inflow of traffic that she couldn't handle. And that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. I realized that having a super gorgeous site didn't help her at all because she wasn't ready for business. She had a site, but she didn't have any systems in place. So I helped her kind of develop those systems, and that's when I realized that's how I can help people. Like, that's what people need, and that's what I was really good at. And I kind of realized that that's what I should be doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I designed my site, and I'm just now sort of getting all the systems into place as people are contacting me to be able to handle all of that. So
yeah, and I think that's how most people are, because I don't know, every blog that you read, every business owner you talk to, they'll tell you, build an audience, get a blog, get a site. And you rarely hear the first thing being set up your systems. So I realized that that's kind of something that's needed and not something that's very common. So that's why I'm still kind of getting into it, because it's new to me and to a lot of people. But so far, I'm loving it. So.
Okay. And then what is your favorite part of what you do and your least favorite part? I know there's always good and bad.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, my favorite part is the really dorky parts. It's setting up the actual systems. It's the things that people hate doing. I love admin work, and I love like organizing and planning. I've been that way since I was a little kid. But the thing that I hate doing, which is usually opposite for people, is I hate those initial client meetings. I feel so awkward and so nervous that I talk crazy fast and I feel overwhelmed. But once that's over, I mean, honestly, that's the only part I've disliked about this entire process so far.
Yeah, I actually had a client like interest meeting scheduled last weekend. I was so nervous. I was like trying to prepare for it, and then she didn't even answer because she had lost service. She didn't have service where she was, and so I was building up to it. And I was like, and that was for nothing.
Yeah, I've had clients cancel on me before, and I was like, no.
Yeah. Okay, and then, I know you're just starting out, but what has been the best thing you've done for your business so far, and then the worst thing that you think you've done that you've seen, happen in your business?
The best thing that I've done for my business is actually invest in it. Because I started it so young, I mean, I really started this business in high school. I didn't have money to put into anything. So I was as cheap as possible. And it wasn't until recently that I actually started paying for some school. Don't think I realized until after I did it how incredibly valuable it was. And since like investing in MailChimp and 17 Hats and every day, I've seen a huge. So investing is definitely the best thing I did. The worst thing I did was starting my business in the middle of school and work. It's good because I have a business set up, so once I'm done with school, I can jump right into it. But right now, it's been insane. My schedule is packed every day, and I have to hustle a lot, wake up early and stay up late. So that's probably the hardest part of it. I don't know if it's like the worst part, but it's definitely the hardest.
Yeah, I know that can be really hard. I got to start mine mostly when I was doing this full time, not thinking it was going to be a full-time job. I was looking for another job at the time, and I just sort of got wrapped up into all this. So that I think being able to do that has been really great. I can, spend all day working on it and not have to go to work or anything.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the investing is huge. I was the same way. I did not want to spend money on my business until I knew it was going to work.
Yeah, me too. And I wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah. Because I think even now I'm not spending that much per month, but it makes a big difference, and it makes it so much easier to get stuff done.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, spending an extra $50 a month for me has translated to an extra $500 in income. So I didn't realize that before, and I wish I had known, because that would have been nice to know 4 months ago or a year ago.
Okay, and then one more question before we get started into more of the rest of the topic. What was your biggest struggle starting out, and how did you work through it?
My biggest struggle is probably time management. I have a day job, so from 8 to 2, and then I had school after my day job. So at first, trying to meet with clients was insane because most of my clients were in a different time zone than me, so they were either getting ready for bed or just about to eat dinner, and trying to figure out how to fit that into my life was really hard. But I think I finally managed to do it just by being flexible with my schedule. So I've done client meetings in between lunch breaks and in between classes, or asking my boss to let me off an hour early because I have meetings. So it's just kind of about adjusting to my business. I thought I could like fit my business into my life, but sometimes it's the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then you help people design systems and processes for their business. So what does that really mean for anybody who doesn't know, how that looks in a business?
Okay, so anything from scheduling your social media to writing your blog post. For everything that you do in your business, you have a step-by-step process that you follow, whether you know that or not. Anytime you decide to tweet something, you are thinking of the content, you're creating an image, scheduling it, and posting it. So my job is just to condense and simplify that process. And I do that by helping you set up tools or helping you learn how to batch process. So that way, instead of tweeting out 10 times a day throughout the day, you can spend an hour on Mondays and get your tweets scheduled out for the entire week or 2 weeks or even a month. So I just help people simplify and condense their to-do list so that way they have more time to focus on the parts of their business that they really love.
Okay. So, like, do you have clients that usually come to you with the same things more than once? Like, do a lot of people need social media or blog post help, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm always surprised by how similar my clients' needs are. Most of them either need social media management, so they need help deciding on how often to post and what to post, or they need help actually writing down their processes in order to prepare to hire other people. So a lot of people want to hire a virtual assistant, but they try it out and they realize it takes them an extra 40 hours a week to train the virtual assistant. So I kind of help them get everything written down, put into a PDF form, step-by-step list, so that way all they have to do is email it to someone and that person can take over that part of their business without them spending hours and weeks training someone.
So for people who are trying to figure out what their processes are, because I have like some of them down, but some of them I'm sure I follow a process, but I don't really know what that is. How do you help them figure that out?
Through coaching calls. The first call that we do is just like to see personality-wise if we fit, if we'll work well together. After that, we sign a contract and invoice and all that stuff. And right away, we do an hour phone call. Sometimes it goes 2 hours. And I literally just talk to them and ask them what they do every day. And the whole time I'm writing notes. And sometimes it isn't until someone says it out loud that they realize they even had a step-by-step process that they were following. So I think just talking to someone and working through that with someone is really what makes it click for people. So sometimes a coaching call is all someone needs, just someone to say, okay, and then what do you do after that? Other times people who are just starting out especially have no idea what they're missing in their process. So same thing, I'll ask them what they're currently doing and I write it all down and then I go through it with them and help them fill in the gaps. And any gaps that are missing or anything that we can simplify, then I help them either with a package. We do like a week-long hardcore course basically where I just teach them how to use tools, or just through a coaching package where I just kind of talk them through it.
Okay. And then I know social media scheduling is a big thing right now because there's so many different platforms you feel like you have to be on. You know, you need to be on every single platform posting multiple times a day. So what is your biggest advice for people who are trying to get that, you know, down into a process to make it easier?
I am a huge fan of Buffer. So I know that there's a ton of social media scheduling tools, and even though I prefer Buffer, I would say the first thing you should do is find a social media management tool that you like. Whether that's Buffer, Hootsuite, or like a more expensive program like Edgar. But that's the first step, is just having something that you can use and get familiar with to actually schedule things out. And then the next step I would say is just narrow your focus. So if you are a wedding photographer, you want to be on platforms like Instagram and Pinterest to show off your images. If you post a ton of blog posts, you want to be on Twitter and Facebook. So it's just kind of deciding on what 3 social media channels you want to put all of your time and energy into, and write content specifically for those channels, and then share that content on your other channels like Google Plus and whatever other channels you have. But you don't have to focus on every single channel. Just focus on 3 main ones.
So what do you think is the one that people are using the most right now? Like, I know I use Twitter a lot, but I've seen a lot of people on Periscope now. That's really big. So what are like the most popular things that you help people schedule for?
Everyone always asks for Twitter because Twitter's so quick. You need to be posting, 10 to 50 times a day. And I love Twitter, and I'm on Twitter all the time. But I really think Periscope is going to get bigger and bigger before anything else. Periscope's hard because you can't schedule it. You can like plan it like you plan blog posts, but you still have to get on and talk to people and be live. But I think that getting in front of people in such an authentic way is definitely, like, hands down the best way to grow your business. And if you don't have time to do that every day, then I think Twitter is the best way to do it from not live, but more of a scheduling standpoint.
Yeah, I do Twitter. I just started on Periscope. I think I've done 2 scopes so far. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a big one. It's a really great way to connect with your audience.
Yeah, I just started on Periscope maybe a month ago. And since doing that, I mean, everything, all my other social media channels have taken off. It's such a good way to build trust with your audience.
So do you mostly work with people who are like running a blog as a business, or is it people who are just running businesses or just blogs?
Most people that I work with had a blog first and they're trying to monetize it. I work with a lot of web designers too. So a lot of them started web designing and they realized that they needed a blog. But I don't think I've ever worked with a client who doesn't have a blog as part of their business plan. And I think that's huge because any business that you see online now has some sort of blog, whether that's posting once every day or once a month. It's important to be putting content out that's permanent. So on Twitter, it goes by fast. Facebook is quick, but on a blog, it's your own personal platform, and it stays there as long as you keep it there.
Yeah, I mean, I have my blog. It actually started as a DIY project and recipe blog, and then I found out I was terrible at making recipes, and it wasn't something I could do long term, so then I switched into sort of what I do with the web design and everything. So I think that's super useful for everybody to, do a blog that's about what they're doing in their business.
Yeah.
And you have a blog. So what do you blog about, like helping people create systems? Is that what most of yours is about?
Yeah. I blog about business, just online business in general, and productivity. So I talk a lot about online tools on my blog. But I try to balance it out with my newsletter, which is more of a personal thing. So anything personal that's going on or how I use those tools in my personal life, I like to kind of balance it out in a newsletter.
Okay, and I'm interested to know, like, how do you plan your blog posts and then put that into a newsletter and everything? Because that's part of the system you have in place, and that a lot of people are really looking at right now, because the newsletter thing is huge. Too, everybody's build your list. So how do you start, with your blog post and then move forward with that?
So I only blog once a week. When I first started blogging, I was blogging a couple times a day. And when I kind of shifted my focus towards growing a newsletter, I realized that people wanted really in-depth content. I liked reading in-depth content, so I started making blog posts only once a week, and I aimed for 2,000 words per blog post. So just by doing that, just posting once a week, has completely changed how I plan my blog posts. So now what I do is I sit down every 6 months and I plan my blog posts for the next 6 months. And throughout the year and throughout conversations, I save any questions that someone asks me about business or productivity, and I save it in an Evernote file. So that way, when I sit down to plan my blog post, I can go through all of those questions and I can find the similarities or the same topics and create a blog post on it. So after I have topics down, I just I make drafts of all of my blog posts in Squarespace. And then I make all my graphics, then I do all the outlines, and I slowly just build pieces onto the blog post until that week that I'm going to post it, I kind of do all the final touches and add in the content upgrades and all those little details that are kind of last minute.
Okay, yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. I've started planning mine out like a month in advance because right now I'm posting like 2 times one week and then the next week will be 3 times just because I have so many things I want to get out there. And since it's new, I don't want to start out at once a week. I think there needs to be like some content that's already on there for people to read,
Yeah.
which is big. And then I wanted to ask you, I know we talked about Buffer a little bit, but what are some of the other like time-saving apps and websites that you like to use and you recommend to your clients?
Oh man, there are so many. The apps or the tools I guess I use the most, Buffer is for social media. I use Evernote for everything, from being like my filing cabinet to saving recipes to actually writing out blog posts. So Evernote is my go-to. I use Asana a lot for just task list, and I keep a different project open for every client that I'm working with. And because they have an iPhone app, it just makes it so easy to kind of keep it updated. And if I had to say one more, it'd probably be Slack. I never thought I would use Slack so much because I don't work with anyone else. I just work by myself. But I started building a community for my newsletter subscribers on Slack. And I am just amazed by how many amazing people are in that community. And I'm so glad that I did that because I'm able to talk to my community every single day and connect with them in ways that I don't think a lot of people even think about when they start building a newsletter.
Yeah, I know. I just joined your Slack community and I was amazed at how many people were like, welcome. I was like, it's crazy. There are so many people in here who want to be a part of this. So I think that's and it's not something you see a lot in what people are doing right now. Usually those are for like paid programs or something. So I like that you're doing it as like a free way to connect with your audience.
Yeah, and I love Facebook groups. So I actually made a Facebook group for the newsletter subscribers and it just wasn't active. So I was looking for a way to kind of keep conversations going. And I think I found it because so far it's been super successful.
Good. Good. And then, you know, what have you found in your own business that has like really helped you develop your own processes and stuff? You know, we all start out and we think we know what we're doing, but we have to learn it as we go, I think. So I want, like, what's learning that for you like?
It's a lot of just testing. I think I grew up where my dad always had computers in the house. He was super tech savvy, so if we wanted to do something on the computer, he would make us figure it out ourselves. So if we wanted to install a game, we had to figure it out. And I think that taught me like invaluable lessons because anytime I want to simplify something or learn something new, I figure it out myself. I don't like taking e-courses, even though they're super valuable. I prefer to like do all the research and take notes on all by myself. And I think that that's what's helped me stay so organized because doing that research and finding things out like one by one like that has helped me kind of appreciate the process of it more. So I feel like I'm saving people so much time when I simplify that for them and I write it all out in a blog post or I make it into a tutorial video because I am so familiar with how I got there that I feel like I'm already an expert, even if I have only been using a tool or a process for a few months.
Yeah. And then I'm curious, because you started this years ago in high school, but you just switched over to what you're doing now. So how have you built up, clients and found those people that need to work with you?
So I started out with a lifestyle blog. I was blogging about fitness. And I had a couple pins on Pinterest that just went viral. So I wrote a blog post about it. And that blog post went viral. And I realized that people really liked me kind of explaining the behind the scenes of things. So that's when I switched over to NoraConrad.com, and I started blogging about blogging, basically. And I kind of got involved in Facebook groups, and I got more involved in Twitter chats. And I realized that the more I talked to people, the more they wanted information about what I was blogging about. So I just started emailing people that I talked to on Twitter and people that were in my Facebook group. I just started asking them like what they were looking for in their business, what they needed help with, and I built my first packages around their responses. And so I built up my clientele just from building packages based on what people needed rather than just trying to guess.
Yeah, I think that's really smart because a lot of times we set out and we're like, well, I'm going to do this and this is what I'm going to offer. And you don't ever really know if it's going to work until people buy it and they're like, okay, well, you could change these things. So I think that's a really great idea to ask people what they would need to then be able to put together a package.
Yeah, and sometimes I've asked people and the answers are so simple and they were so obvious that I didn't even think of them. So it was something that I do every day, so I wouldn't have thought that someone needs to be taught that. So just by asking people, it's made my job much easier, and I think it's made clients happier. So it's a win-win.
Okay. Now, is there anything else like that you want people who are either in blogging or who would be interested in like getting more into this systems and processes to know, either before they were to try to figure it out on their own or go and try to work with somebody who does what you do?
Yeah, I would say just to not be afraid to mess around with stuff. I mean, you're not going to like break your website or break the internet by just playing around and like messing around in a system. So just getting comfortable with playing with things and getting to know the tools that you're using is always a good idea, and you'll always learn something new by doing that.
No, and like once you get all these systems in place for your clients, you set up either their social media systems or the way they do their blog posts, and they communicate that to you, and then figure it all out. What is their biggest struggle after that?
From what I've seen so far, it's just kind of growing from that system. So if I set up a social media system and they were posting, 10 tweets a day, and they want to move up to 50 tweets, for them, sometimes it's hard to make that transition because we built a system based on 10 tweets. So for them to go in and change it themselves kind of makes them nervous almost. But what I usually do is I tell them, like, I don't have time for a project right now. I can coach you, but I can't go in there and do it. And I do that on purpose because once they see how easy it is and once they have to do it, I think it makes them more comfortable with it, and then they're a little more self-sufficient from there on. And I still do coaching calls with past clients all the time, but it's always short little fixes that they can do themselves. They just need like a little push to do it.
Yeah, I think you always need that push. You're like, I'm just not sure. I'm just afraid. I don't want to mess anything up. I know it's working.
Yeah, exactly.
And you said you had a lot of people who were like transitioning over to VAs and trying to give them their processes. So what exactly in your process do you need to have laid out before you try to go and work with a VA?
A lot of people will hire a VA when they start to feel overwhelmed. So they're hiring someone at the busiest point that they've ever been in their business. And that's understandable because that's the point when you're like, okay, I need help. But they don't realize that hiring someone new will take even more of their time because they have to show them how to do things. And no matter who you hire, it could be the best VA in the world, you're still going to have to give them a little bit of leeway to get used to your system. So if you don't have a structured system or a structured training system in place, that process doesn't take a week, it takes months. And I think a lot of people take a few weeks and then they give up on that person because they don't realize that it's not the VA, it was their system. So when my clients have that problem, the first thing I do is kind of gently but bluntly explain that to them, that they need to help themselves, basically. So we just help them structure their business. I help them figure out what their system is and actually put it into words and put it into bullet points that someone can look at and follow as they do it.
Yeah, because I think, at least for me, I do everything on my own. I hate group projects because I can't let anything go. So I feel like I would not realize that I had like a process, and then when someone else tried to go in and do what I do, I'd be like, no, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and it's hard because there's little tiny things that you don't realize that you think about. I mean, something as simple as which heading to use in your blog post. It's something that someone new coming in would have no idea what to use, and they probably just use whatever they thought looked good. But if you don't write it down, they have no way of knowing. So a lot of times people just don't think about that stuff because they've never worked with a VA or they've never had to write down their system. But because I have that experience, it's much easier for an outside perspective to come in and say, here's what you need. Okay, what do you want for this, this, and that? And write it out for them rather than trying to figure it out. Because you don't know what you know until someone else is confused by it, basically.
Okay. Now, and then what advice would you have for people just starting out, either just in an online business or trying to, maybe do what you do and figure out how to help other people with their processes?
I would say be patient. That's the most important thing. I mean, no matter when or where or how you start, it's not going to be perfect right off the bat. And nothing you ever start for the first time is ever going to be perfectly planned and perfectly rolled out. So you're going to probably start a blog, which is a good place to start, and start a newsletter. And at first, it's going to suck. Your posts are going to be subpar, your graphics are going to look terrible, and you're going to look back at it a year later and be embarrassed by it. But you have to start somewhere, and if you don't start there, you'll never grow. So my advice is just to start. No matter how terrible you think it's going to look, everyone's website and everyone's ideas look terrible the first time that they try it out. So just to not be afraid that you're going to fail, because everyone has to fail before they succeed.
Yeah. And for me, it was, don't be afraid to change your mind about what you're doing. I started out doing DIY stuff. You started out in a lifestyle blog. So sometimes you have to be willing to adjust as you go and, figure out what you're really going to be good at and can help people with, especially if you're trying to make it a business, because I don't think selling ads on a blog is really going to do it anymore. You used to see that all the time. People would sell ads and that would be how they made all their money, and that just doesn't happen. So you have to know what skills you have and then how you can use those to serve other people.
Yeah, and especially in an online business, because the online business world changes every single day. There's something new every single day. So if you are not good at adapting, you're not going to succeed in online business. You have to be willing to have curveballs thrown at you, and you have to learn just how to deal with them and take things as they come. And it's a hard thing to learn, and you'll fall flat on your face some days, but it's good to just try to stay positive about everything and just know that it's a good thing that everything moves so quick online, because if you completely fail and your launch is a total flop, everyone will forget about it the next day. So it's a good thing.
Have you ever had anything that's like totally failed? Because I know my first free e-course that I wrote, and I look back on it now, it was 6 months ago, and I was like, what was I thinking? But I had 5 people sign up to take it.
Oh yeah, I wrote a free ebook. I don't remember what it's about now, but I launched it for like a month and no one downloaded it for like 2 months. And I don't know why I even left it up, but finally someone downloaded it and they emailed me and they're like, this isn't that good. And I was like, oh, so I took it down. I failed more than I care to admit. So, yeah. But I've learned something from every single thing. I think I've learned more from my failures than I've learned from my successes. So it's not a bad thing at all.
No, it's definitely, you have to fail and then you have to be able to learn from that. And I think the other thing that you learn when you get into this online community is that you have to be willing to ask other people for help. What do you do? How do you do this? Just put it out there, because people are so willing to answer questions and help.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something I was terrible at. I mean, I could email people and ask for advice, but actually asking for help is something I really struggled with, really up until about a month ago. I hurt my hand over the summer and I couldn't type like anywhere close to as fast as I needed to. So that alone was such a huge learning experience for me because I had to ask people to help me. And because of it, my community has completely flourished because I've had to reach out to people. And I realize now how valuable that is to do.
Yeah, I think people are really willing to help other people online, which is nice. I'm glad that it's that way.
Me too.
All right, now I've got two last questions, but do you have anything else you wanted to share about the systems, processes, what you've learned in your business before we get into that?
Yeah, I would say that if you have like the basics set up, if you have a website and you have a blog and you're growing your newsletter, before you try to sell anything or you try to monetize anything, the first thing you should do is write everything out. I wish I had done that the second I started blogging. But literally just write everything out that you do every single day. Start keeping a checklist. Start tracking your time to see how long things take you. Because once you start to grow your business and you start to monetize, you're not going to have time to do that. And then when you need to hire help or ask for help or you need to adjust your system, you don't have any starting point to jump off of. Where if you start that from day one, you're going to look back and you're going to be so thankful for that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to start doing that. I'm going to have to sit down and take the time to just write out, here's what I do and how I do it and how long it takes me, because I know it all in my head, but I don't actually have it written down anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I always think of it as like in middle school when in science class, I think they have you have to write out how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And, sometimes it's like super easy, like get the bread, put the jelly on, you're done. But then the teacher reads it out loud and you have to be super specific because they follow the instructions all wrong. And I think back at that example all the time because that's exactly how you need to write out your processes. You have to write it out like someone literally is starting from ground zero and has no idea what you're talking about and write it for them. And at that point, you have a perfect system right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example because I remember them doing that and they'd follow your instructions and they'd be like, but I don't understand what comes next. And you're like, this is really easy. I don't understand why it's not computing, but for somebody who doesn't know what you do and doesn't know how you do it, it's not easy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So what are your goals for the next 6 months for your business?
Ooh, I have a lot. I'll narrow it down to two, though. I currently work for family, so as much as I love them, I hate my job. I love working for family, but the actual work that I'm doing, I do not enjoy. So over the next 6 months, my goal is to cut back those hours and slowly work more on my business. And by summer of next year, I'm getting married. So by my wedding, I want to be working for myself. So that's my main goal, is to build my business up enough that I can quit and not go into panic mode. But my second goal is to get to a point where I can work 4 days a week and take 3 days off. I am super close to doing that now with my business. And if I could do that after quitting my job, I would be in heaven.
Yeah, because you start a business because you want to be able to have the flexibility and be able to take time off. And so I do this all the time. I get so caught up. I'm like working 12, 15 hours a day, every day of the week. And then you finally hit a wall and you can't do anything. And then you're just stuck. So I feel like, trying to plan that out, I'm going to take time off is so huge for people that are getting into business.
Yeah, and I don't mind. I like waking up early. I like working, but I want to be able to run my own business so I can go see a movie in the middle of the day, or I can go hiking for a whole weekend and not worry that I'm losing money. So that's kind of my goal with this business, is to be able to live my life with room for my business.
Yeah. Okay, and then what are you working on right now that people can go and check out or can expect to see coming out soon?
So I'm just doing my very first one, but I plan to do it every month. I'm going to be hosting live workshops. So it's kind of like a webinar, but more focused on teaching. So this month I'm doing an automation workshop, and I'm going to show everyone how to automate their social media and automate their Gmail and just start to simplify those processes. So everything is going to be geared towards simplifying a process. But they're super cheap. I'm just going to be selling the tickets for $5 each, and it's a live video training with Q&A, and then after the live event is over, I'll be selling the recording and all of the goodies with it for a higher price. So that's what I'm working on right now, and then every month or however long I plan to do it will be a new workshop.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I didn't even know you could automate Gmail, so I might have to join in and watch.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm really excited to, get into this and talk to different people. And I think this is going to be really great for people to see, especially starting out. You start out with your systems and your processes in place, figure out what those are, and that's going to help you really a lot as you grow.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks so much for inviting me. I'm so excited for you and for this. Super exciting.
Yeah, thanks.